And welcome back. Looking at specifically some angle measures today and a couple theorems. Again, things that I think you'll understand fairly easily. First one, triangle sum theorem. Okay, something that we've talked about before. I've mentioned in passing. Most of you guys know the sum of the measures of the angles of a triangle is 180. So no matter what, the three angles have to add up to 180 degrees. Third angle theorem. If two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of a second triangle, then the third angle of the triangles are congruent. If you think about this, let's say this was 60 degrees. Actually, no, let's make it 70 degrees. This has to be 70 because they're congruent. We'll say this is 60. This has to be 60. 70 plus 60 is 130. So right now, both of these angles, these triangles have 130 degrees, which means both of them have to have this angle as 50 to make it work, which means these have to be congruent. So again, something that makes sense. You don't need to memorize them, but you do need to understand them. Exterior angle theorem. For whatever reason, people do struggle with this one. I'm not sure why, but it does happen. The measure of an exterior angle of a triangle is congruent, or we're going to say actually equal. I want to say equal here. Equal to the sum of the measure of the two remote, keyword here is remote, interior angles. So what that means is you have a linear pair right here. The remote interior angles, remote means like out in the middle of nowhere, kind of like a desert is a remote location if you didn't know where you were. So it's kind of separate from where you're at. So your two remote locations are these two angles. Those are your two remote interior angles. What it's saying is those two angles together equal, let me get rid of this, equal this angle right here. Okay. I'm going to plug in a couple numbers so I can show you why it works. Let's go ahead and say that this angle is 60 degrees. Again, this angle is 70 degrees. That's 130 so far. So we know this final angle has to be 50 degrees. Okay, it doesn't work any other way. So if that angle is 50 degrees, this is a linear pair, which means this linear pair has to add up to 180. That has to be 130. Look at this and that. They're the same. Okay, so those two remote interior angles equal that exterior angle. Something you want to make sure you understand. Corollary 4:1, again, something you don't need to memorize, but the acute angles of a triangle are complementary. Okay, think about it. If this is 30 degrees, we know this is 90, so this has to be 60. In other words, these two angles, besides the right angle, add up to 90. They have to be complementary. Let's look at a couple of examples. Again, just looking at what we looked at yesterday, making sure we understand what symbols mean, all that stuff. How we label a diagram. AB is perpendicular to BC. So you see AB, you see BC, show me that's perpendicular. Taking care of that. CD is perpendicular to BC. Okay, show me that. BEC, not BET, BEC is 122 degrees. And ABE is congruent to DCE. So these two angles, I'll do double hash marks, are congruent to each other. Okay? Looking at the diagram, think about what else you might know. Okay, I see that we have vertical angles as well. So I would want to label that these are vertical. You don't have to, but you might want to use that information later. So let's start seeing what we can figure out here. I don't like to go straight over to and find the measure of angle ECB. I would rather do it on my own terms, kind of figure out what I can find, and then go back and answer all these questions. So I can start off, I know that I have a straight angle right by this 122. 122 and this right here are going to add up to 180. So if I wanted to add up to 180, this angle right here has got to be 58 degrees because we want this linear pair to be 180. If that's 58, its vertical angle is 58. Okay? So we keep going. What else do we know? Well, let's see what we've got here. We know that if these angles right here, where we mark those double arcs, have to be congruent, then so do these. Because if we're going to add up to 90, these also have to be congruent. So what I know is this top triangle that we have here with 122 in it, that we know has to add up to 180. So what we want to do is take 180, subtract 122 from it, because that's going to give us the measure of those two angles combined, which is going to give us 58 degrees. So that gives us both those triple blue lines that we have, both those angles combined, but we want only one. We know that they have to be equal, so we're going to cut them in half. So these are 29 degrees, 29 degrees, and then it kind of snowballs from there. We can figure out everything else. We know that both those top right and those top left angles have to be 90, so that would make this 61 degrees, this 61. And to find the last angle, find A and D. Look at the big triangles, so look at this triangle. Okay. We know that one angle is 90. We know the other angle is 29, so we have 90 plus 29. If you can look at that, hopefully you can see that, equals 119 degrees. So that's those two angles combined, so our leftover has to be then 180 minus 119, which is going to get you 61 degrees here. So this is 61 degrees there. So a little bit of a tricky problem. Okay, a lot going on here. You can double check, make sure all your work adds up. You should make sure all triangles add up to 180, and they do. And then go back and answer the question. So let's find ECB. So E to C to B, that's 29 degrees. C to E to D, 58. Again, make sure you can follow these in order. A, E, B, make sure that middle letter is always the angle. A, B, E. E, C, D is 61. And E, B, C is 29. So again, I like to put everything I can down on the diagram and figure out what I want to figure out first, and then go back and answer these questions. Okay, a couple different type problems. This is the exterior angle theorem. Solve for x. Okay, so this is the one where we have the two remote interior angles. The two remote interior angles are equal to this third angle. So we know that x plus 15 has to be equal to that outside angle. And I showed you why earlier on that theorem. So x equals 60. So this would have to be 60. And again, you can check it. 60 plus 75, or 60 plus 15 is 75. Okay, this would also have to be 105. It has to add up to 180 inside, and then you can check your linear pair. That also adds up to 180. Okay, another one, exterior angle theorem. You have two remote interior angles. You know this is x squared minus 8. You also know this is x squared minus 8 because it's marked as the same angle. There's two arc lengths. Okay, so we know that they have to be the same. They're both congruent. So what we're going to say is that, again, these two angles equal that exterior angle. So we're going to have 2 times x squared minus 8. We're going to have 2 of them equals x squared plus 8x minus 7. Okay, so let's simplify this a little bit. 2x squared minus 16 equals x squared plus 8x minus 7. You should see where this is headed. See an x squared, you see an x, move it all to one side. I'm going to move x squared to the left side so I can keep it positive. Okay, that's going to give me just x squared. I'm going to move 7 over here. So that's going to give me x squared minus 9 equals 8x. Okay. In my next step, I'll subtract 8x. Nowhere to put it, so we're going to slide it right in the middle there. Okay. So we get x squared minus 8x minus 9 equals 0. Again, you're going to use your box, come up with the two numbers that work, plug them in, and do your ZPP. I'll let you guys finish that for tomorrow. Figure out what numbers work, a little factoring practice. Double check both answers. Okay, number 3. Find the measure of angle 1. Okay, so again, we might not be able to go straight to that, but hopefully we can figure out what might be going on here. So we know that this angle is negative 3x plus 58. We know this angle has to be the same thing. Okay, so far so good. Now if we look at this in another way, you can see that there are actually two triangles that overlap, and they actually, they actually create that third triangle in the middle. Okay, so what we can see is we have already two angles, the single arc and the double arc, that are congruent in these triangles. What our theorem said above, if two of the angles are congruent, the third angles have to be congruent to each other. So what we can do here is we can actually say that 2x plus 3 is equal to negative 5x plus 24. That'll help us find our x, and then we can use it to plug it in a couple different spots. Okay, so let's solve for x. See what we come up with. This would be a good time maybe to pause it, work ahead if you want. So 7x equals 21. X is 3. Okay, so if x is 3, and we want to find angle 1, let's just plug it in everywhere and see what we get. So 2 times 3, I'm going to plug it in this top left. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 31 is 37 degrees. So that's, I'm not going to circle that. We don't need to circle that. That's 37, which means this is 37. I'm going to plug it in down below here too. We know that, let's see, negative 3 times 3 is negative 9, plus 58, this would be 49 degrees. Why am I circling all these? Means that's going to be 49 degrees. So now let's look at this triangle. That's a nasty color. We know the top, bottom left and bottom right angles are 49. So 49 plus 49 is going to give us 98 degrees. So now we can find that leftover top angle. So 180 minus 98 is going to give us 82 degrees. So this is 82 degrees here. Vertical angle, bingo. Measure angle 1 is 82 degrees. So you have to apply those theorems. You have to make sure you can figure out what you're looking for using a couple of those theorems. Okay, solve for x and y. I'm gonna set this one up and probably have you guys finish it for tomorrow. Okay, see where we want to start. We have two triangles kind of smushed together. We see a couple angles are already set as congruent. Again, if two angles are congruent to each other, two pairs, then you know your third pair has to be the same. So now you can start working wherever you want. Okay, I see pretty simple setup right here. One angle is equal to the other, so 3x plus 9 equals 45. Those angles have to be congruent. You can solve from x from there, and then you plug it back in, and I'll let you guys solve for y. So finish this one for tomorrow. Number 5, we are going to do tomorrow. I'm going to have you guys work at the beginning of class. Again, tomorrow at the beginning. If you want to try it before then, that's fine. I'm going to check the ones before this, but I will not check this one tomorrow. I'll have you guys work on it while I come around and check the homework. See ya.